Meeting of the Albany Public Library Board of Trustees to order. First on the agenda is to adopt the agenda, so I'll take a motion to do that.
I'll make a motion.
Sandy?
I'll second it.
Matthew?
Oh, sorry, I didn't see. Whatever.
You had your chance to.
Matt can have it.
Well, the voice carries, I would say. Yeah. Always good.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
And I also want to apologize about my voice. It's better than it was yesterday, and if you can't hear me, let me know. Okay, next on the agenda is the minutes from the April meeting. Oops, thank you, it's right there. Next agenda is public comment, but seeing no members of the public present, we'll move on to the minutes. So, we need to approve the minutes from the April meeting. I will take a motion to do that.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Andy. Any discussion, any edits or change? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Treasurer's report and check register.
Any questions?
Just that we have a lot of information technology expenses. Is that just because we're
Because
doing stuff?
he's just, getting ready for the beginning of the year. Keep aware though that he front loads his expenses.
Okay.
Mary, what is exchange account? So I
That's
see
just when money comes in and money goes out, so it's that one, the one on it is,
there's two.
so when it's on the balance sheet, but basically when the person, they took money out of his check and so then it reimburses, so it's just like what the account, it's not any account that it's on the profit and loss statement. It's just money that goes in and out that does not affect the profit and loss, the income statement. So it's
Okay,
on
but
the balance sheet.
What causes that to happen?
Oh, because in that case, it's like if an employee, a good example is when too much money is taken out of their New York State retirement.
Okay.
So that then, so when we took the money out, then we have to pay the employee back.
Okay.
Thank you, Mary. I just want to confirm the CDT check 8464, that's the income the library collected on CDT's behalf.
Yes, that's the money that we take in and that we send back to them.
Is there anything that you saw in the treasurer's report that you'd like to point out?
You can't see it from it, but that, it's not a lot of money, but the FASNY Museum 8416, that's a museum pass.
Fire foundation.
The landscaping charge was all for Washington Avenue. That's check 8446. Those are questionable, unusual ones.
Anything on the treasurer's report that you want?
Oh, and no, in the treasurer's report, we're kind of running toward the budget. It's just in terms of some of the occupancy, like a lot of the maintenance and repair contracts are, again, front-loaded in the beginning of the year, so that's why that is running over. And obviously in books and periodicals, sometimes they order more in the beginning of the year. So all in all, we're running toward the budget.
Any questions? Okay, I'll take a motion to approve the check register. Jenna first and second. Matthew, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, committee and liaison reports. First up is the facilities committee. Matthew.
Alrighty, so we had to postpone our April facilities meeting. We didn't go to facilities first?
Yes.
Okay. We postponed that, so we had it on May 3rd. Everybody got together to get a date before the full board meeting. One of the important things we wanted to talk about before the full board meeting was our visit to the Delaware branch, our board walkthrough, our facilities committee walkthrough that had happened on April 23rd. So we hadn't had a chance to regroup for that until the facilities committee meeting on May 3rd. So just to be clear, Scott and the maintenance staff do their own walkthrough of the branch. The staff of the branch does a walkthrough with Dan themselves, and the facilities committee does a walkthrough. All of these three walkthrough noticings are compiled into what's becoming a large report, which will then be used to generate our plan, our facilities plan. So it's taking a while to get through all of them, but we're doing our due diligence, and we're getting through all the buildings, but we're making sure everybody gets to go through in terms of facilities committee staff and directors. So we just did the Delaware branch, which is our third, right? I think that was
Yes.
our third that the facilities committee did. And the big things to come out of the Delaware walkthrough, the main issue really was the roof, which is, I think, upwards of 10 years old, needs a lot of maintenance. And this will come up later in item number 6 at the bottom of this report. I don't want to bore you with all the other stuff, you can see it. And I left out that we had some discussion during the walkthrough of the back patio and maybe fencing that in and using that for space. But that was kind of like just idea generation, so it wasn't really I didn't capture it in the facilities meeting. So there's a lot of other items, the work, so without going through point by point, which would be incredibly boring, you can see that front of the Washington Avenue branch, perhaps you walked in the front, the work is ongoing, and a lot of the work to really complete everything will be done in the next 3 months. If you turn the page, item number 3, Washington Avenue branch community room, there were some ideas about how to change that. There's been some difficulty with the classrooms in the community room being kind of close and the sound carrying, so Scott has suggested partitioning it off into 3 rooms and using the middle room as a kind of air buffer for sound.
Is
And
that
This is
This room,
yes.
It's being used for BOCES?
Yes.
but they only use, as That you can see, corner. like that corner.
Yeah, so, and Scott has scoped out materials that would fit within the budget. At first, it looked like it was gonna be something more expensive, but Scott has come up with something that would fit within the budget for this year and that would be able to be mobile and form 3 rooms. So that's upcoming. Is that still slated?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's all, that, I take no credit for that, that was all Dan.
Oh, so Dan came up with that, and Scott approved it, so
Yes.
there you go. So there'll be some mobile partitions in here, apparently they're very good and easy to use, and they're gonna create the 3 spaces, that 2 of which will be used. Then the Washington Branch administrative floor, Scott is looking at reactivating the staff gym. I personally, during the facilities meeting, thought that was a great idea, both for insurance reasons, health insurance reasons for the staff, of course, making the staff happier, which is good. And I believe it could help us down the road in sustainability, in terms of the staff feeling like they're in a sustainable work environment. So that was something that was discussed I don't know if the plans are
They're moving forward.
solid for that, okay. Then we got an update on the house stairs and railing from Scott. It looks like the, Dan and crew are happy with the materials, and that basically, the stairs and railings are pretty much installed, although there has to be some final work done. I'm a little vague on that, but they're pretty much there, and some of the work needs to be finalized, but everybody's happy with it. So the big item is number 6 on the second page, is that Scott had the idea to remove the stairs and railings from the next DLD grant, and then bundle together the Howe roof, which was on the last proposal, with the Delaware roof, and possibly write in some solar for either one or both roofs, so that the solar could actually bump us up on the rubric for hopefully getting some grant money. So the facilities committee approves that idea, and we thought we would bring it out to the board. Is that a votable item?
It doesn't need to be voted on.
Okay. So, and what's the timeline, I forgot to ask you, for putting this submission
God,
together?
when do we usually do the
The
application?
grant, that's usually like August.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but this is just so you know, this is coming down the pipe. And that's it. And I'll say any questions with that, I probably gave you everything I know. So any input from the people who were at the facilities meeting?
Do you want to just elaborate on 4B, the possibility of another classroom up on the admin floor, or do you not want to
No, we
talk
don't
about
wanna-
that?
it's just a discussion right now.
Oh, I didn't skip over it for any particular reason,
Okay.
just to make it brief, but thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Matthew. And you did gloss over the solar stuff. So
Not because he wasn't passionate about it.
I'm totally
I just wanted to know more. So, looks like, based on the first page, Delaware would need some roof repair before solar could go in?
Yes.
And then,
And how to,
okay. Is there any NYSERDA funding for solar?
No, because most of those are tax credits and we don't pay taxes, so.
Right, I thought there were some municipal,
So we're gonna reach out, there's a couple different organizations, I know the county is very interested in getting everybody to go solar. Howe is also next door to Kesselman's solar warehouse. So we want to reach out to them and say, be good neighbors and let us know how you can
because you
help
wouldn't
us.
sell us your
Giant-
building?
A giant cement
Would
building.
you consider,
Yeah, and I think they'd be open to it. They have expressed a real interest in being more engaged with the community. This will be the second gala that they'll be supporting through advertisement. So I think it opens up a pretty healthy conversation.
I think that's great. Looks like solar possibilities.
Mhm.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, Barbara Hudson, Library System. Matthew.
Okay, that's me. Nothing came up at the last meeting to report, just kind of general business, but tomorrow will be the next meeting. So there's gonna be some revisions to the DLD grant application process, but they're not public yet. I just brought them up again on my Kindle, it's dated 5/9, so I really can't share them right now, but I can share them after the meeting tomorrow evening. You can mail them over to Scott. He probably knows already, because he's on the director's board there. So I can report on those next month. And that's really gonna be the report for next month, Upper Hudson, I think. And for the last month, it was pretty much business as usual. A lot of thanks to everybody who did library advocacy stuff, of course. So.
Thank you again. Any other questions? Okay. Pegboard.
Pegboard. It's gonna get him every time now.
Every time now, I'm sorry.
So Peg has over the last year, gone through many changes. The board was pretty much completely shaken up, and several members were removed, several were added. We actually still have several spots open. The big issue was that it was determined that all members of this board have to take an oath of office, because it is a city committee or city board. So throughout that process, we determined that our representation would be myself or Scott, and I took that on. I am treasurer of Peg Board, so if anybody needs of little money they have, yes. But throughout the process, we determined that, the library stated to the PEG that we needed a MOU for them using the space. So until that was signed, we shuttered the doors. And then we also wanted to make sure they had their coordinator, because they had lost their coordinator. And so we wanted to make sure that they had a coordinator in place for the studio before we allowed anybody back in. That whole process took about 5 months since I was added to the board. And as of our last meeting in April, we now do have a signed agreement with the library, similar to the ones we have for Cycle and Head Start. And they did hire a coordinator. So his name is Kirk Daniels. And he started, his first order of business was to go through the studio since it had been shuttered for nearly a year.
Wow.
This public made sure we knew it was like 316 days, down to the day how many days it had been closed. So he did an inventory, or he's currently doing an inventory of the studio. The board members met as a group on a Saturday for about 4 hours to discuss the future of the organization. And we're really building it from the ground up. We're taking a look at the bylaws, writing new operational procedures, getting all the guidelines back in place and everything like that. We're hoping, we have our next board meeting is on Monday. We're hoping to finish fleshing everything out then with legal representation. During this process, we also had 3 new legal counsels. So they were on a rotating basis. And we hope this one will be with us for at least the next year to get us through this process. But we're going to do that. We're hoping to have the studio back open to the public by June. And there'll be a large, hopefully, unveiling and new social media, new website, everything. Because if you look at the current website and the current Facebook page, they've been dormant for about 2 years now. There's been nobody actively doing any of that. So we're looking to do a big community push. As I stated, there are two spots that have to be appointed by the Common Council members and 1 mayoral appointee to the board. So we do have some spots open right now that they're hoping to hash out within the next month as well. And that's pretty much where we're at. So for all of the people who say, when is the studio opening, we're hoping it will open in June, if all goes well.
Well, thanks for doing that, Melanie, because, it's been nothing but difficult times with getting that going and operating, and who's committed and who isn't. So to have somebody with your attention to procedural details, I'm sure that'll be very
And
helpful.
I think that the people that are on it now, on the board now, seem to be very passionate about getting it working and getting it going in the right direction, not just doing it for have a feather in their hat or something. They're actually committed to having this run smoothly.
Excellent.
Any other questions or comments?
Given that we don't get any money for it, and we could just give them the space.
Well, we're actually in discussions with them about that we can share the space with them. So because the coordinator is only a part-time position, so he's really only in there for 20 hours a week, and we really don't have, PEG does not have the money to pay him more than that at the moment. So the studio would be dormant for quite a long time. So we're hoping to work on an agreement that when it's dormant, we can use it for our podcasts or to do sound editing training with community members.
My old public library had a library show. Could do a library show. Show people how to use databases. I got recognized a lot in the supermarket.
Thank you, Melanie. Next is review of the policy and procedures grid, also the review.
So no updates since we did not have a policy and governance meeting. We're hoping to have our next one in June for the next meeting, but everything's up to date. I added the notes that were discussed the last time around. And just a reminder that the board needs to get together to discuss the board specific policies.
When's the Kaizen, I'm sorry.
So actually, the Kaizen for the fine limit and the overdue fine structure is on hold because there was another one that came up that we have to do before it. So we're hoping to do that one in the fall.
Okay.
And when's the next policy and governance meeting?
First Tuesday in June, I believe.
Yeah, we have a new date.
It would be the 5th.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Okay, director's report.
So the library hosted several programs during the April school recess. We also celebrated National Library Week, and the library did outreach to the March for Science, the UAlbany Science Fair, and the Senior Resource Fair. The Washington Avenue branch hosted its annual Homebuyer Fair and also hosted its annual Raising a Reader baby shower. Arbor Hill celebrated National Library Week by hosting a library scavenger hunt. The Bach branch, Let's Talk About a program focused on Albany Rural Cemetery. The Pine Hills branch started a new program series, Wednesday Wonders of Science, where professors speak on different scientific topics. The Delaware branch hosted an adult Terraniums Earth Day craft. Howe's Books to Beat program is also moving along, and if you go to our YouTube page, you'll see some really adorable videos. And the North Albany branch's book group has grown out of its space, which was the staff office, and now needs to use the large library tables, which means it kind of gets in the way of library operation. Jenny Murphy, our head of CMS, has announced her retirement. Jenny joined APL in 1988 and retires at the end of May. IT is working on bringing color printing and duplex printing to the public. The foundation is hosting an evening with the authors on June 7th, and this will be with this year's Literary Legends. And the Friends annual meeting is on May 9th. Looking forward, on May 5th, the library will have celebrated another free comic book day, where every branch hands out free comic books as a method to encourage reading for all ages. The library will coordinate 2 self-guided tours of the city, including Pine Hills and another in the neighborhoods that border the New York State Capitol. And the Vanguard Albany Symphony Orchestra preview performance will take place at our Washington Avenue branch on May 18th. Is that in the evening or during the day?
12
Noon time.
Noon, so it'll be noontime. That's it. Open it up to questions, comments, concerns.
It always bums me out how much I missed during the month.
Oh, do you have a party for Jenny's retirement or gathering?
Yeah, her department's setting up a gathering.
Would you,
On that Friday.
I'll let
would you
know.
let us know?
Yep.
And just a reminder that we are the charity of choice this year for the CDPHP Workforce Challenge, which is happening on May 17th, next week.
Wow,
That's
that rocks.
awesome.
Well, the foundation is.
The foundation,
So-
the Albany, the Raising a Reader.
Raising a Reader is the specific program it's
Program.
And
focusing
can you
on.
explain what that means?
So the fund, they pick 2 charities every year that the proceeds from their workforce challenge go to. So we are one of the recipients, we're one of the 2 recipients for that money. And then throughout the year, their staff does fundraising. So we're guaranteed a minimum of $10,000, and that could go up depending on how much they raise throughout the year.
Fantastic. That's great news.
So cool.
So is that a competition? You send in what your need is and they review those, or was it nominated for it?
I think we sent
We-
in an
yeah.
application.
And so did Lex do that?
Lex did that.
Yeah.
That's a
Okay, so the
foundation.
foundation. And just to elaborate on your point, Scott, that the Friends meeting is tomorrow. That's the meeting where they're going to decide whether to merge with the foundation or not. So it's a pretty momentous thing, and have some kind of news at the next meeting about that. Any other questions or comments? Okay. With no unfinished business, we'll move on to new business. Scott's gonna report on the spring featuring results.
This will be a quick report. You know, almost every time we do a survey, it's, you know, almost always positive. This time around, it was meh, is actually the best way to describe it. We obviously need to improve our outward-facing IT. This is the lowest scored survey we have received in 5 years. It is now a major concern for administrative staff. And one thing we saw is not only do we need to improve our internet speed, we did have that gentleman at the Delaware branch who mentioned he can't check Yahoo. That's continually what I'm being told by both of our head of IT and also our consultant is why. We have a very slow, my house has a faster internet connection than this building. So, you know, we need to improve that, and also we need to better market some of the services we provide. So our Chromebooks, our Wi-Fi hotspots, you know, our online printing, people just don't know about. And while we have a small group of dedicated people using those services, it's not getting out to the rest of the population. So we need to make improvements in both the mechanics of the way we do our outward-facing IT, but also work on some marketing and really kind of get the staff engaged in hand selling some of these products that we're providing.
I think asking them the questions is a great start for marketing, because I thought, netbooks and Wi-Fi hotspots? Hey, I could use those,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, surveys are always a
So-
good way to market.
Yeah.
So they are, and I'm glad that you do these twice a year. I saw that 475 or so took the survey. So it could be that that sample just doesn't use them. I mean, are you finding that the Wi-Fi hotspots, are they always checked out?
Yeah, Wi-Fi hotspots, but there's so few.
They're always checked out.
How many are there?
30 across the system.
Yeah, and people come in every day asking for them.
The same
So-
people?
No, different people, but I think like we just don't have enough to make that number go up. They're just always out.
And the unfortunate part with that program is it started out as a program with T-Mobile where they had devices that had been given, these were like refurbished devices, so they were devices that were given to schools as part of grant programs that were no longer needed, so they were returned, refurbished, and since they can't sell them at that point because they were for a grant project, they were able to give them to libraries for free. That program has since ended.
So we can't get
So we
more.
can't get more for free. Now it's a,
Yeah, we have to pay.
we have to pay for them.
You have to pay for the devices or the service?
Both.
And what
Before, we were just paying for the service, we weren't paying for the devices themselves.
So where do they fall in the price range of other technology that we offer?
Well, they're around about $75 a piece. So if we would
Per
like,
month or per year?
well, for the devices themselves.
And then,
And then I think it's,
I think 60 for the unlimited.
yeah,
So
we got
Yep,
per
per
device.
device.
Oh, that's a lot.
So it's not a cheap program.
No.
No,
And
but,
we're-
but the fact that they're always out and people are always asking for them doesn't jive with the fact that people don't know about it.
Right.
So, similar with the Chromebooks, are they always out?
No.
They are not always out, okay, so that.
yeah, but 30 is not a lot over a system.
30 is not a lot, but I'm just suggesting that that more than 475 people use the library during that time, so this is a subset of this population that uses our library, we may not be getting the whole picture. And so
True.
we're asking about what the other evidence you have that
But
this
we,
is-
you know, the people who take our survey, the individuals who take our surveys are what we would consider our patrons. They're the people who are really engaged in the operation of the library. So that's why I think it's a good kind of weight You know, these are people who are, they get this because they follow us on social media, they get this because they read our, you know, weekly email blasts, or they look on our website. So these, I expected these numbers to be much higher and almost skewed the opposite direction, because I thought it was, oh, these are the heavy technology users, they pay attention to what we're doing, but, you know, we're just not seeing it.
Well, how do you know the demographics of people who took it? Did you ask those questions?
We don't ask demographic questions.
So, I mean, it could be that, or it could not be. I mean, it could be people who have computers at home, so they're not using, and Wi-Fi at home, so they're not using these
Sure.
things. So, is this the first time you've asked questions like that?
About technology, yes.
Okay. Good, well, it's an excellent start, but I think keep asking questions to make sure that you're.
Getting more.
So will you be bringing a report of how you are going to address this particular
There is supposed
findings?
to be an IT plan by June. I do not know if that's going to happen, but there will be an IT plan before the end of the year. But I can definitely report back with some of the changes that we are going to make immediately. Next meeting.
I was really surprised to see that more people didn't use the Wi-Fi network than did. So what does that say about who's answering the survey? And not just rhetorical, you know?
Is it that more people are getting unlimited data, so they're not switching over as much?
Do they not know?
I honestly think a lot of people don't know still. You know, we really, I don't think people realize that there are still people who come in and go, do you have Wi-Fi? And that always kind of blows my mind, because it's like, yeah, of course. But again, you know, I look at users, there is the occasional user who knows we exist, but doesn't walk in the door that often, and they're, you know, surprised by everything we have to offer. And those are the people we really, I think, need to reach out to more. And I think we just assume that we get a lot of people using our IT, but I think there are more people out there who could benefit from the services we provide.
I think we have to plaster buses, we now have that bus relationship.
Yes.
Plaster buses with,
Did you know?
right,
Part of the Raising a Reader actually has a component where buses will have, a couple bus stations will have a huge, beautiful poster of this family who just recently reached 1,000 books, and also internal signs as well.
Always forget to do that one too. We bought books. Never
It's
had
all right,
nothing.
my kids didn't finish summer reading last year, so it's okay.
Any other questions or comments?
Do we think that people are more savvy about using public Wi-Fi, and that could be related, because public Wi-Fi can be dangerous to use it, like, for hacking and.
I don't know, I think most people hop on any Wi-Fi network they can jump on. I don't think most people are that savvy to really get that, like, oh, this could open us up to a danger. But that's possible, that they're just shying away from us. What's interesting in our statistics this month is that we continue to see desktop usage go up, which I think is something we haven't seen in a long time. And it's hard to tell where Wi-Fi is because we switched to the Meraki system, which creates a sign-in, which is still, from network perspective, much better than what we had. We have seen our network go down a lot less. It is a little faster. So it's just interesting to see that we have desktop growth, and that concerns me in some ways, because they indicate some other economic indicators. And simultaneously, it might mean the people who previously bought equipment, that equipment is aged out, so now that core is broken, and now they're coming in. But it's definitely interesting to see that usage of our desktop computers go up.
And again, when you look at the question, despite that observation, more people than not, or more people didn't, say they didn't use the computers versus that they did. So it's good to use both of those data sources to figure out what's going on.
Or is it that we're all sick of looking at our stupid little screen and want to see, the Met runway pictures much larger than these tiny little,
That's a
Pope
possibility.
costumes? I went from my phone, got out of my bed to my, computer and look.
You know what you
I
need?
couldn't see them.
You know what you need? You need a Chrome stick, and then you can project
Yeah.
your phone screen onto your television.
Apple TV does it.
It's
too.
just-
Chromecast.
Chromecast. Yeah, we do it with pictures.
But-
So we scroll through our pictures
Well,
on a
now,
big screen.
now there is a new business for the Albany Public Library. You come to my home and walk me through the purchasing, installing, and the operation of it,
You
Scott.
cannot pay a librarian enough to do tech support at home. No.
I like that idea, but let's not get.
That would require a vast increase in our staffing budget.
More insurance money.
That too.
All right, so we'll talk more about that after. Next on the agenda is staff report and outreach. And then Jill.
So Jill is going to present for us, just so you know, we're going to focus on our new volunteer program, which falls under community partnerships and outreach.
Who do we have here?
This
I'm Jill. I'm the volunteer coordinator.
Hi, Jill.
Hi.
We're the board.
is outreach.
Did you bring the little oranges?
Yes.
It's good.
Worst case scenario. Yeah. You got this, you did it perfectly. There we go.
Thank you. All right, so as I mentioned, I'm the volunteer coordinator. Scott and Amy asked me to just put together something brief on our volunteer trends for the start of 2018, as well as a little bit on the outreach services that we've started to expand to the older adult population. Our volunteer statistics, so the overall hours that volunteers are putting in as of April of this year, are up. We have seen a 23% increase from this time last year to this time this year, which is great. These are just looking at March and April of last year compared to March and April of this year. So we're seeing a nice steady rise. Overall, between January and April of this year, there's been a consistent increase in hours as we're going up. April was especially high just because we had, as Scott had mentioned a little earlier, the baby shower event here. So we had a lot of extra volunteers come in, but there's been a 48% increase from January to April, and that should stay pretty consistent as we go throughout the year. I'll talk a little bit about why that might be, but there won't be much drop off. So that's the good news. Alright. As for our branches, all of them except for North Albany have at least one consistent volunteer, so that's at least one person from the community who's coming in every month to do some sort of assistance with the branch, be it program assistant or teaching a class or helping with children's activities. North Albany doesn't really have staffing or the programs they need help for, so that's nothing new right now. 4 out of the 7 branches have added new volunteers this year, so that's a plus. And Delaware has taken on a new group for volunteering, and Washington Avenue consistently has groups come in to help with one-time events and such. Great. Little on our outreach. Library Links is our home delivery program for homebound seniors. So it was started over at Bach, and as of April, it's now at all 7 of our branches. So North Albany just joined on board, so we can now deliver to anybody within the city of Albany who's 60 or older, who's homebound. North Albany will begin with somebody in June. We have 14 people right now who we deliver to. 5 of them consistently over at Bach, 1 here at Washington Avenue, 1 person at Pine Hills. We are working on advertising this program so that we can take on more patrons. As we take on more people, it's volunteers who do the delivering. So as I mentioned, as patrons for this program go up, that's another reason volunteers will go up. For seniors who are living in any of these 7 senior centers around Albany, we have Will over at Arbor Hill, one of our librarians, who brings books and materials on a monthly basis. So this is another way we are reaching seniors who can't get to our branches. And then lastly, we've been working on upping some of our presence at other events. So Scott was mentioning staff, so myself and some other people have attended health and services fairs, so bringing information, books and materials and such to different areas around the city. We're also beginning to host pop-up libraries at community lunches at different nursing homes and such. So we're going to be doing 2 of those in June. We did one last November and it went decently, so we're hoping a bit more of a turnout and we can keep those going. And then we will also be I'll be looking to try to bring in seniors through volunteering, so attending volunteer fairs and such, and seeing if we can bring them through the doors that way. And that's everything that's going on. Do you have any questions?
So, go ahead, Brett. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I just noticed in one of the earlier slides that I was paying attention to North Albany not having a consistent volunteer. So I know it's very small and
Yeah.
we're trying to figure out what to do with it, but I'm on the North Albany Ad Hoc Committee, and our last meeting there had a huge turnout. I was just thinking if we could get people interested in volunteering there even for a little bit consistently. You know, there was we have like a community panel that's now meeting with the board's ad hoc committee, so there was some feeling that the community was not feeling involved or engaged by the North Albany branch. So I'm just wondering if our next meeting is on May 30th, either, isn't it?
Yes, but that may not be a public meeting.
Oh, it might not be a public meeting, I don't know. But if it is a public meeting, can we give your contact information out at that meeting for people who think
Yeah, of
that's a good
course.
idea?
Yeah, you can pass it on. I can give it to you.
Okay, or
Yeah.
at our next public meeting.
Yeah, definitely. That would be great.
Great,
I
so
will
Stephanie can connect us.
promote it, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
Now, what's the demographic breakdown of your volunteers? Who's volunteering?
So we largely have college students. So that's one of the reasons that I'm trying to expand my volunteer pool, because we run into issues where, for example, in a few weeks, they're all leaving. Luckily, we usually don't have as much of a need for volunteers in the summer, but college students can be a little flaky and on and off. We do have some adults who come in, so that mid-age group, and we have a couple of high school students, but that's also another age group that we are working on reaching out to. But it's mainly that younger 20s college age group.
And are they doing it for a service requirement?
A lot of them are.
Okay.
That's another issue. They do their service hours
And then
and
they're
then
gone.
they leave. Yeah.
And it seems like Delaware and Pine Hills have significantly more volunteers than other branches. Is there a reason for that?
Delaware works with a couple of our community partners.
Okay.
So they work with the Wildwood program, and they work with ARC of Rensselaer. So they're bringing in different groups and they're having them do a lot of small projects, like helping with crafts and different things. While, for example, Washington only brings in somebody in their youth services department like every other couple of days, like every other week, to do very basic things. Or Bop only has 5 people who deliver for library links.
Okay.
So it largely depends on what the branch wants to do with their volunteers and what programs they have and how much supervision they want. Delaware puts a lot more towards their volunteers.
Yeah, because the supervising volunteer takes
Yeah.
a lot.
Takes a lot more. Anything else?
So with your job is both the volunteer coordinator and you do outreach to these locations, or are you just reporting on that?
No, I do volunteer coordination and then senior outreach and other outreach and whatever else Amy gives me.
Great.
Yeah.
So you went briefly over what the volunteers do.
Yep.
Programs, teaching classes, help with kids. What else do they do? Or is that all up to the branches?
It's largely what the branches need. So right now, Howe is looking for people to teach piano and guitar. A lot of it is leading crafting courses. I think Scott brought it up, the science program that was started at Pine Hills is volunteer-based. They also started a coffee and culture program at Pine Hills, which is once a month. That's volunteer-run. We try to bring volunteers in for computer assistance. So the one-on-one computer assistance that we need extra help with, volunteer-based. It's largely what we see a need for but don't have staff for.
How do we advertise that we want volunteers?
Talk to me, and then I can work on drafting up exactly what you're looking for and get the word out.
No, I mean, how do we advertise to the community that we are looking for volunteers?
You mean like as an
That
organization?
APL is looking for volunteers.
Do we do that? Do we advertise for volunteers?
If there's a
Yeah.
page on their website for joining APL as as a member, as a volunteer, as a donor. And then I know when she goes out to the fairs and stuff like that, there's always, are you
Yeah.
interested in volunteering?
And we have a site on Volunteer Match, so we put them up on there, and then in person, word of mouth. Yeah.
Maybe we could have some sort of blurb that goes along with it. I was actually approached by one of my coworkers, I don't know, sometime in the last month, where I think she saw the page for sign up if you're interested in volunteering, but she asked me, what opportunities are there? And really, outside of library links, I wasn't familiar with what else the volunteers
Could do.
actually, yes,
Yep.
actually
Like
could
volunteer
do.
job description.
Yeah.
Yeah, so even though it's flexible, if there was, just a few bullet points or something,
Yeah.
so that it gave people an idea or a sense of, I have these
That's been
skills.
updated, I noticed that as well.
Okay.
It doesn't always get updated, kind of, the website is sometimes left to the side, but I think it's been updated, I will check on that. Because that's me communicating with Dana and the public information specialist. That's a great idea, yeah.
So, do you have a goal to increase the volunteer base beyond college students? And so,
Yeah, our goal is to make our volunteer program as strong and consistent as possible. So we want volunteers who stick around and keep coming back. So my goal is to kind of branch out from the college students. So attending things like the fair at the end of June and bringing in different demographics is definitely one of my ideas that I'm working towards. Yes, Matt?
So the website was updated 4/5/2018. It includes library links volunteers, Albany Made Creative Lab volunteers, guitar and piano teachers for Howe, crochet class instructor for the Delaware branch, one-on-one technology instructor for both the Howe and Delaware branches. So it's been updated, but recently.
Thank you.
Well, you're to be commended. It's been a while since the library embrace volunteers as, to even make somebody's job, to encourage and nurture them, so that's great. And anything we can do to support that, you know, let us know, and I think it's the way to go. You're working against a culture that, you know, hasn't had volunteers very much. So that's, and
They're a
it's really
tough
good.
group. They're a tough group, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Janine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so next on the agenda is public comment. Seeing no members of public present, we'll skip that. Saying no executive session is necessary, so we can take a motion to adjourn. Jenna first, Sarah second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Thank you.